Where on earth did Loki go when he disappeared with the Tesseract in Avengers Endgame? How could the Asgardian prince influence future MCU movies through radical time jumping? And is there some possibility that Loki actually becomes president and leader of the free world? Hi, I'm Dylan, and we're breaking down all the hidden meanings and what we know so far about the upcoming Loki series, based on the epic trailer. So strap in! Where does Tesseract take him? We all know that the famous Tesseract is one of the powerful Infinity Stones that allows characters like Thanos to move between time and space with ease. What we don't know, however, is exactly where it transported Loki during the Avengers' failed time-jumping recon mission during Endgame, but there are a lot of theories around this. The trailer suggests that it transports him from the Avengers Tower lobby to some desert in the middle of nowhere, Tony Stark style. But it doesn't seem as though someone like Loki, who we've seen using the Tesseract with such skill, would miscalculate his destination when using the stone. So how does he end up covered in an ocean of sand as seen in the trailer? And why doesn't he have the Tesseract with him? A lot suggests that Loki manages to transport himself somewhere else, but we just don't see that part of the story in the 2-minute trailer. The most logical explanation might be that the Tesseract is taken away from Loki wherever he goes, and he's somehow banished to the desert where we finally see him buried in sand. Sans Tesseract. So it's possible that Loki spends a majority of the story fighting and conning his way to get it back. Plus, we already know he has some seriously wild ambitions for that elusive space stone he's so obsessed with. While it may not be clear exactly what happens to the Tesseract between Endgame and the crash landing in the desert, it's safe to assume that his plans don't go accordingly, as we soon see him in the custody of the famous TVA. They're a very big deal, by the way. Who or what is the TVA? If you're unfamiliar with the Marvel comics, you might be confused as to who or what exactly the TVA is. And judging from the trailer, they're gonna be a pretty massive figure in the Loki series, as well as the entire MCU moving forward. But who are they, and why are they such a big deal? The TVA is the Time Variance Authority. They're essentially an organization made up of a group of timeline monitors who keep track of all the goings-on of the universe. If there's a rift or a disturbance anywhere in the galaxy, they're the body responsible for keeping things in check. And that's where Owen Wilson's character comes in. Seen here in a well-trimmed mustache, Wilson's character seems to be none other than the spectacularly named Mobius M. Mobius, the most recurring manager of the TVA in the Marvel comic books. It looks like Mobius might very well be Loki's handler in the epic adventure we're predicting will come. Nearly every action-packed frame of the trailer suggests that the Prince of Asgard will spend a lot of his time hopping in between different timelines and eras for a number of different TVA-related reasons. It's safe to say that Loki is in captivity, and might be used as a time-jumping agent rather than a prisoner kept in containment by the organization. Another major moment of the trailer is this one here, where Loki is forced to watch the events from the first Avengers movie, a moment he's just experienced. An interesting Easter egg pops up just before that though, when Loki is shown an image of himself from Thor Ragnarok. See, we're already aware that Loki doesn't get to live out the moment in the current timeline he's in, which might suggest that he's been shown moments from alternate universes, specifically ones that we've seen as an audience. But why would the TVA feel the need to show him this? Well, there are some thoughts circulating, of course. It's possible that Loki will be used as an agent of the TVA to confront and maybe even apprehend different alternate versions of himself that manage to destroy worlds in their own timelines. Remember President-elect Loki who pops up towards the end of the trailer, and even the mysterious hooded figures who pop up purely to raise more questions? Well, these might actually be alternate universe versions of Loki that he has to come face to face with throughout his journey. The TVA could be giving him a shot at redemption after showing him how things play out once the Infinity War kicks off. And we know that doesn't end well for him. Mobius definitely makes sure that Loki sees that through the projections. Maybe if Loki helps the TVA, they could lighten his sentence and make him a free man. Who knows what the terms are at this point? The entire trailer is actually chock full of time and era jumping Easter eggs, but there's one massive clue in particular that punctuates that very theory. What the elevator symbols mean. Elevator rides can sometimes be unbearable situations that feel like they take forever to end. Well, the elevator we see in the Loki trailer looks unlike anything anyone's ever spent uncomfortable silences in. That might be the case for the fancy elevator seen in the trailer, but one of the main talking points for the Marvel fandom is what the symbols on the elevator might actually mean.
You're taking me somewhere to kill me.
Turns out they could be very important to the possible storylines explored in the series. In the elevator that Loki and Mobius occupy, we see a whole bunch of symbols and 3 character combinations as the elevator descends past different floors. These symbols might illustrate that each floor is a different dimension and a different timeline. This might actually showcase just one of the ways Loki's able to move in between space and time to confront different versions of himself. Not only that, but he may even be tasked by the TVA to face off against different villains that are tearing up alternate universes that only he can stop with his mischievous and cunning gifts. Kind of like a solo, Suicide Squad? Wrong universe? Okay, never mind, forget it. But will all this almost magical time jumping mean Loki will move between alternate Marvel universes only? Well, the trailer seems to promise some historic changes will be part of Loki's story too. How Loki will remake history. Actor Tom Hiddleston may not have worked with director Quentin Tarantino nearly as much as his Marvel colleague Samuel L. Jackson has, but Tarantino might be inspired by how alternate historical events might come from the Loki series. Much like Quentin changed the course of true events with Inglourious Basterds and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Loki trailer suggests that real-life history might either be altered or subverted in the new series. How so? Well, it's impossible to not notice the moment a suited-up Loki jumps out of an airplane mid-flight with a bag full of money. Well, you'll be surprised to learn that this moment reflects an unsolved real-life crime story for the ages. Take this moment here of a clean-cut Loki in shades as he sits alone in a passenger airplane. Well, Loki, a perpetual master of disguise, might not be the Prince of Asgard here. Instead, he's the infamous D.B. Cooper. In case you have no idea who that is, D.B. Cooper is the mysterious con man who extorted a $200,000 ransom through an airplane hijacking between Portland and Seattle. Cooper then parachuted from an in-flight airplane to an unknown fate, leaving only a few bills to be found in the Columbia River. If that sounds familiar, it's because that moment is showcased through the expert impersonator's high-flying antics in the trailer. This means that Loki will either impersonate or alternate different facets of history as we know them. Or perhaps he might answer some historical mysteries that we don't have the answers to. This may be wishful thinking, but we could get some sort of a conclusion about who the Zodiac Killer is, or we could even find out what's really lurking behind Area 51. We can only hope that Loki might be the key to all of history's mysteries. And if history has taught us anything about the MCU, it's that one way or another, all of our favorite superheroes are bound to cross paths and timelines, especially since other Marvel characters are getting their own spin-offs too. But what are the possibilities of all that happening? We obviously gave that some thought. How Loki will change the MCU. For anyone to suggest that the Loki series will only follow the adventures of Tom Hiddleston's famous character, then they're clearly not paying attention. The trailer uses clever ways to tell us that the rest of the entire MCU and their spin-offs might cross paths at some point. A big hint lies in the fact that Disney's taken a deep dive to extend Marvel's cinematic universe, using some of their famous characters like Scarlet Witch and Bucky the Winter Soldier. If they could make an entire series like The Defenders, which involves the stories of Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Black Lightning, and Iron Fist crossing over, little would suggest that Marvel doesn't have it in them to make another ambitious crossover for the history books. But how can we tell from the trailer that this could happen? Well, we have some awesome theories of how characters in the MCU could come together, like that epic Endgame showdown. We already know that it's possible for Loki to explore alternate universes that we have and have not seen before. And we also know that he can travel through a Bifrost transporter that we're already used to seeing in all the Thor movies. So it's not ridiculous to suggest that Loki could meddle in the MCU we're already familiar with, and further influence the current Avengers timeline we know and love. Guys, that means we could get Loki back even after all that literal breathtaking moment at the beginning of Infinity War. While it's mostly too early to tell how Scarlet Witch, Falcon, and Bucky will cross paths in Marvel's famous storytelling style, there is a suggestion that Loki will use his ability to time jump between dimensions in ways that will influence future MCU movies. With an ability to move swiftly between timelines, many believe that Loki will have an impact on the upcoming Thor: Love and Thunder. With the announcement of Natalie Portman returning as Thor's first ever love interest, Jane Foster, Marvel president Kevin Feige also confirmed that Natalie will become the famous The Mighty Thor. In the comics, the character of Jane wields the same power as Thor Odin's son using his hammer, Mjolnir. But since that and the entire planet of Asgard was destroyed in Thor Ragnarok, there's a solid belief that alternate universe Loki will bring the powerful hammer into the current MCU universe and give Foster her mighty powers, which would be epic. Wouldn't you love to see Loki ripping his now overweight older brother? Who doesn't want that? Besides Thor, of course. Not only that, but we now know that the upcoming Doctor Strange and Spider-Man movies are going to explore the hell out of the multiverses. So it's only a matter of time before we see all of our favorite heroes and villains cross over into each other's stories and marvel us fashion. That's what we know so far about the highly anticipated series. If you're interested in more amazing Marvel content, check out our epic WandaVision BTS video. Subscribe to our channel, and as always, stay awesome!